Greetings, Dave Dickinson here, and I am currently reviewing Unistellar's new eQuinox telescope. This is the successor to their EV scope that they put out last year, and it's very similar. And before it got dark here, I wanted to run through and just say some of the things that were different, some of the things I noticed while I was reviewing it and putting it through its paces. I had it out at a star party with the Back Bay amateur astronomers. I'm up here on the parking garage rooftop, which is pretty light polluted and somewhere I usually wouldn't go. This is in downtown Norfolk, Virginia. Somewhere I usually wouldn't go after dark sky targets because it's just too bright. There's lights down here for all sorts of reasons. Usually I restrict myself to just planets, the moon, double stars, bright targets. However, I found with this, I was able to go after brighter, messier objects, brighter comets, down to about 11th or 12th magnitude, which is really saying something. So we have it powered up. This unit is very similar to the EV scope. The biggest differences I've seen, there is not the electronic eyepiece on the side, which makes the scope a little lighter overall. It's got a newer tripod to it. This tripod you can sit out into a double extension, lower and higher if you want to. It's a 3-segmented leg. It's 19 pounds versus 25 pounds. Battery life is a little better, 12 hours versus 10, which is still pretty generous. That's enough for the entire night. And the storage is much more. I believe it's a 62 gig. Don't quote me on that. I'm just talking from my memory rather than 12 gig for the storage. Now the scope, there's no eyepiece, is controlled by the app. And you literally can manually slew it there's a joystick. There's a virtual joystick on the app. And you're slewing it around. And once it gets dark enough, what you're going to be doing is putting off this focusing mask on the front. There's a focusing knob here, finding a bright star, letting it plate solve to find where it is, because this works totally off GPS and plate solving in order to look at different segments of the sky. I found this is very forgiving. I've used a lot of different plate solving star sensing programs before that are very, very touchy. This one here, it just needs to be slightly dark, like 20-25 minutes after sunset. As a matter of fact, we're past local sunset now, probably in about 10 minutes. It'll be dark enough that I can start plate solving and start lining it up. So it's very forgiving, very easy to set up. It's literally power on, Wi-Fi. When you go through, there's a database here that shows different targets, what's recommended tonight, or you can do, if you're hunting for a comet, which I've done before, you can go to right ascension declination if you've got your research done for where the comet currently is, and you can go punch in right ascension declination and line it up. And there's also a very interesting, I've only played with this a little bit, they're actually, SETI Unistellar is actually doing science with these. They're doing asteroid occultations, which is when an asteroid passes in front of a bright star. They're doing exoplanet transits, which is amazing to me to think you can do exoplanet transits from your backyard with a backyard telescope. That's pretty impressive. This is only a 4.5-inch mirror. It's not a giant telescope by any means. They're also looking for cometary activity, which I've got some questions in on them on how that works. The way it looks to me like it works is you're searching and uploading these images. What happens when you're actually shooting, once you go onto an object, it will go find the object, line up on it, and then once you hit, there's a mode where you hit and tell it to start photographing it. It literally just takes and starts photographing, stacking, cleaning the signal to noise out of it. And the kind of images you get coming out of it eventually, when I go back through here, puts them in a folder, down, down, down. I don't know if you can see this very well. These are the kind of images that you get. Mostly deep sky objects, messier objects. Now, I was able to go after the Eastern Veil at a star party and show people this in public. What I thought was a really neat addition is to put this doesn't come with it, this phone clamp, but I think they should make actually a built-in phone clamp for it. Because when I was using it, the first time I had one of these, an aircraft going over, when I had the EV scope and I had it out at a star party, the problem we had with that is a lot of people were kind of reluctant to look at me looking at my phone and trying to convince them, no, this is something the scope is looking at. So when I did this last star party last Saturday, I had the phone physically clamped to the telescope. And you can charge off this too, incidentally. There is a USB port. If your phone is dying, which mine is about to, you can start charging off it. And instead of me having to play with the scope, fuss with it, find the target, and do what I usually have to do, I could simply send this to it, and we could hold court around this, and then simply be there looking at and explaining what this nebula is, what this deep sky object is, what this open cluster is. So I think that was a much easier, just psychological add-on, and I kind of like that too. To just, I don't have to. My hands are free, phone is there, and you're playing with it. I doubt it would even line up right now. I've done solar observing with it. If you have a glass solar filter that fits on the front, you can actually do that. Like I said, you can charge off it. It's really it's portable enough. They do have a backpack for it. It's not cheap, of course. At I think it's $2,999. It's not a cheap telescope, but it's something that you would use every night going out. And I know for the fact that if you're doing deep sky imaging, a lot of times everybody knows it's a very steep learning curve to finding objects, acquiring objects, lining things up, doing dark fields, flat fields. This does fairly acceptable photos right off the camera, just on its own. And I've turned a friend of mine loose on this the last time I had the EV scope. I turned a friend loose that he was very tech savvy, knew nothing about astronomy, but he knew how to download an app, how to bond something to the Wi-Fi. There is a way to put this on Zoom, by the way. I've got that question quite a bit. And he was deep sky imaging that night, and I'm like, you're leapfrogging through a year or so worth of, even the DSLR era. I've done film photography, I've done tracking, stacking, I've done webcam converting, I've done everything you can think of in the field of astrophotography, and I still think there's a niche for this. Can't talk. I think that there actually is something for they're using it for scientific observations, which is cool, and I think public outreach, this would be a very cool thing. But anyway, that's it. It's a cool unit. I'm going to shut it down, which all you have to do is go here and tell it to park, and that is the Unistellar eQuinox telescope.